Thanks for joining me. My name is Kevin Anyango, founder of Mtandaoversity School of Soft Skills. What the platform does is it talks about those characteristics that employers want or bring opportunity. But today I am not alone. Today I am with Omore Osendo. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kevin, and I'm glad to be on the show. Thank you so lot for the invitation.
My pleasure is mine. As I said, I told you earlier, I'm a huge fan. I know what you do, and so being here is extremely honor. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I'll just go straight to the point. Obviously you worked at a very high level. So what is the secret?
Well, the secret to being where I am, I think one really is of course knowing your purpose. Let me just start at that high level. It's good at a very early stage you begin to get to know the kind of field that you'd want to be in, or the kind of spaces or vocation or area you want to work in. And once you know the area you want to work in, then you begin to coalesce around the networks and the people and the agencies that deal with the kind of work that you do, trying to follow the people or the events that cover the areas that you'd want to work in, but also getting to know more and learning more about this area that you'd be interested in. I think for me those would be the beginning of getting into the space that you want. But once you get in to the space you want, whatever career, whatever vocation that one does, reskilling and upskilling, let me use those two words, but not going in and just sitting back and saying, okay, I got myself a job, or I got myself in my dream career or in my dream organization, but constantly knowing that you need to improve your skills, and not just getting a master's degree or a bachelor's degree or a PhD, as many people do. And those are good. And we should get them and they help. But increasingly now, there are many other skills that people are looking for. And you need to be one who can combine both your academic, your experience, but also what you have called today your soft skills. A combination of those three will get you far, in my view.
So just to cut it short, now, when you are starting, you talked about networking. Is networking really overrated? I mean, it depends on who you know why. It doesn't really mean you have to go out and like sweat when you're networking. Is that true? Do you agree to that? Like it's overrated?
No, it's not overrated. You don't become an authority in your field if you have not networked. And networking means getting to know the different people and the different agencies that span your career or your field, and constantly being in touch with what's happening and with the people who are in this field at all levels. That is not overrated. That is a skill that will still be required in now and in the future of work. If you ask me, you've mentioned something about who you know.
Yes.
And I know that is a big thing in the workspace now, in certain jobs.
Yes.
Who you know, okay. But this doesn't replace the need to network. Even those who get into a job because they knew someone will still have to perform, because there's only a certain place your godfather will reach in terms of you keeping a job. You may get the job because you know someone, but will you be able to keep the job? And many times godfathers or godmothers, for that matter, come round and are now telling people, I'll get you the job, but it's your role to keep it. And many organizations now are not, it's highly competitive. So your godfather is not going to hold your hand through your career. So networking is important. Who you know is not important in my view. It may get some of you jobs, but it may not keep you in that job.
Well, can you learn about networking, or do they teach this in school, how to network?
They don't teach it in school, but your exposure from a child builds your networking skills as an adult. So if you're going to keep your child in the house, they're going to watch TV all alone, or they're going to play their games, they won't interact with other kids, you're already, the child who is exposed has a head start in their networking in the future. If you're in school, whether it's in elementary school or high school, if you're not someone who's going to be in clubs where you interact with other students, your networking skills are not going to be nurtured. If you go to the university, if you're not going to be in clubs, whether it's theater, it's music, it's political leadership, it's Rotaract, whatever it is, if you're not going to be in these spaces that require you to get to know people, deal with people, how to work with people, how to interact, you won't have a head start when it comes to networking when you get into the marketplace.
So does school matter? And the reason I'm asking about school is, I'll give an example. For example, in Kenya, you find Kenyatta went to St. Mary's School, and you see he interacts with his boys. In the UK, you find most of top politicians, and for example, I'm going to mention the former Prime Minister David Cameron. You know, most of his cabinet at that time, or even his friends, are those guys that went to school with. So I suppose school actually matter. And in this case, if you're poor, you've got no chance.
You're mixing two things. So are you asking if school matters, or if going to an upmarket school matters?
Right.
Because,
well,
you've mixed the two issues.
Right. Let's go to number two first. So going to an upmarket school, or for example, going to a prestigious school, so that matters then.
Well, you know, right now, if I look at my office, so it's in the public domain. I work for the British High Commission in Nairobi. That's a fairly prestigious place to work in. If I look at the Kenyans in that office, and I give you the list of the schools they went to, you will have a mix of those who've gone to those kind of schools you're talking about, the St. Mary's types. But you've got a list of I have colleagues who've also been to other schools all over the country, but we are all in the British High Commission. Okay, so while yes, there are certain political leaders we have seen, when you reach a certain high level in politics, you will reach out to people you know, because a lot of times the president of Kenya or the prime minister of UK comes into office and they have a mandate to deliver. They have a number of things to deliver. The first people they'll run to are, I was in school with this guy and he's in the energy sector, and I think he would really be someone I can quickly work with to build my energy policy. Though that kind of thinking happens, and you know, there's nothing wrong with that. But it doesn't mean that then there's no space for those of us who went to other schools. Okay, so they may pick some of their close advisors from the schools they went to because they know them, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you'll largely in the civil service, you will have workers who've come from all sorts of schools and all sorts of backgrounds, but who've worked their way up and found themselves in the service. So in terms of close advisory, yeah, it's who you know, who you can trust, who you've seen their work, and you'd want them to come in and start off with you. A lot of times some of these advisors fall off. They help you start and then they fade off.
That's interesting. And I don't like to dwell on that, but you mentioned something I'm very keen on. So if you went to a nice school, we do agree that's the jump start. You kind of jump the queue. You see what I mean?
What is a nice school?
Well, I will ask you that.
Yeah,
what is a nice school?
and yes, and I'm asking that question because let me give an example. In Kenya, okay, you've got nice private schools, And a lot of the kids who go to the good private schools, many of them even go out of the country and for their university education. Many of them don't even come back. They get jobs out there in the places they went to, good exposure, etc. You've got people who go to local schools, some right in the village, but would still come out with skills that get them into the marketplace and get them into critical spaces in the workplace. A good school is one that will develop you all round, academically, how you socially, emotionally, that whole balance of intelligence. And I think you get that from a wide range of schools in this country, both public and private. You actually have some private prestigious schools that do not nurture your social skills or your emotional skills. And in my time when we were transitioning to high school, we saw a lot of that some of the schools were focused on getting you to pass, and you did pass very well, and you got into a very good high school. And the primary school had a good name because they made children pass. You saw instances where they actually ask you as a parent that, oh, your child is going to pull down our grades. Please take them to another school. We won't register them for the Kenya Certificate of Primary Education. It was all about passing exams. But you went to high school and looked and followed those kids, and you found that they struggled in the place where a public school child would come in all-rounded, socially, emotionally, academically. So it's a balance that good schools would give you across the spectrum. So I think it's for us who are then taking our kids to school now to have that knowledge. Which are the schools that give that balance, and can I afford that school?
So we do agree that when it comes to soft skills, really, it starts from the school, and it's very important. If actually the school have got this kind of program where everyone's there's that, you use the word all-rounded or holistic kind of approach.
It starts from the home and then the school.
Well, what about the home? What's happening there?
How are you brought up? What kind of family interaction and family environment have you been brought up in? Some people get to school coming from really scarred family backgrounds that school sometimes cannot undo. Okay, some of the values that you bring from home sometimes are not undone in school, and sometimes they're negative values. So it starts from home, and then in school, of course, is really where you're shaped and where you meet other children from different backgrounds and different families, depending on the school you go to, and that is then nurtured into tertiary levels of education and out in the workplace. I had a lecturer in the university who used to joke about students who schooled in the locality. You went to a primary school in that village, you went to a secondary school in that village, and then you went to the university that is in that village. And he used to say that those ones are going to struggle. They can't. I think he had a point.
That is the way you put it is quite fun. So are we losing him again? Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you now. Great. For those that have joined us, this is Mtandaoversity School of Soft Skills, and I'm talking to Con Omore, based in Nairobi, Kenya. Look, I don't want to dwell around home and schooling, but I think it's important for all people watching us now that if the environment at home is not that conducive, they might struggle. But do you agree to that? I'm asking you.
Yes, and conducive here is basically how your the values at home. It's not even about what you have and what you don't have. It's not even about the neighborhood that you live in, and we can go into the details of that. But it's the values that you brought up in. So we have seen. I mean, a lot of our parents were brought up country before they migrated to the city, and they were brought up under good values. I mean, discipline and proper work ethic and proper relational kind of values at home and in the neighborhood, and you carry those traits into your teenagehood, into your adulthood, and even if you migrate to the city, you carry those traits, which hopefully are honed in a good school. And again, I've said a good school is one that would give you that exposure. It doesn't have to be a high cost school. So that's what I meant by the conducive environment.
Now, let's talk about work ethics, because also that's one of the soft skills that I'm very keen on. And I'm going to give a very good example. There was a tape, you might have seen it. There was this clip going around in social media, mostly in Kenya, about this particular person. He was saying how poor people can be very lazy. And he was saying that, if you buy a lorry and ask someone to come and use it to bring in income, they will try and steal from you. They'll be saying how often the lorry is breaking down, but actually what they're trying to do is they're trying to steal from you. Where do we learn work ethics? And I think you'll agree with me here, Con, that it is lacking now in places of work.
Yes, work ethics is it's a sum total of some of the soft skills that you must have. And where do you learn work ethics from? Well, I think one is really to get into the workplace and we see how you will apply what ethics you have in terms of work. This is built, as I've said earlier, from the values you learn as a kid, the exposure you get into school, and finally get into the workplace. That's really where we will test it. So I would still maintain that your work ethic, one, will be learned from your upbringing and from your exposure and from your schooling, but also when you step into the workplace, is when we get to see how do you treat your colleagues, how do you deal with a bribery case that is brought before you, or an opportunity to get a shortcut for you to reach where you need to go. For example, simple work ethics. We had a lot of people in school that never wrote their term papers. They had people do it for them, and they would pay them and get the high grades. But when they come into the workplace, many times you find there's no one you're going to pay for that. And then you cannot write something simple, and that exposes you. So a lot of the small things that we ignore as we're growing up catch up with us in the workplace, and your work ethic is informed by the values that you learned growing up, and in school, and in your interactions, and in your exposure.
Wow, talking about exposure. I mean, so when somebody tells you, I don't have a job, not after kazi, what do you tell them then?
With regards to what?
Well, it's work. I mean, you find someone that graduate, has been home for 5-6 years, not getting any employment, and if you ask them, why not at work, they tell you, "Hakuna kazi Kenya. The environment doesn't work for me." What do you tell them? Is that statement true? That should you be using that statement like "Hakuna kazi"?
You're asking if they should be using the statement "Hakuna kazi"?
Well, no, what you tell them? If someone tells you, okay, you've got a basic experience. When you're hiring yourself, for example, and you get the CV of somebody who graduated perhaps, let's say 5 years ago, and there's nothing really they've done, and you ask them, why is there this gap? And they tell you, hakuna kazi Kenya.
If I've understood you, and I'm really trying to connect that to the soft skills that we're discussing. So I'm hoping it's building up to something. But if I'm hiring and there's a gap in the CV, gaps in CVs, usually, I mean, people should be able to explain why there's a gap in the CV. It's not wrong to have a gap that shows that you are not working. Many times you are either in school, many times you are either volunteering somewhere, and many times people don't put like volunteership or internships in their CVs. They think they must only put places where they were employed and they were being paid. Volunteerships and internships, in my view, are part of building work experience. And if you are doing that during that gap period, that adds to your work experience. If you are maybe in school, there's no harm in that. You're getting an education. But of course, the hard question I know you're asking is that if there was actually no work and they
Yes.
were seated at home, or just job searching and not doing any volunteership, I would question, because I know there are people who look down upon volunteership.
Yes.
Maybe because one, they don't pay, and I know there's some that don't pay, and it's not good if they don't pay, but also two, because they may just be paying a stipend. And some people are looking for a job because they want to be paid a salary with certain benefits, etc. That says a lot about you. If in the interim period that you're unable to get a paid job or a full-time job, that you also decline offers for genuine internships or volunteerships. I don't know if I've answered your question.
No, yes, indeed, and you have joined this very well. When I was asking about no work and experience. So I suppose what I'm trying to say here is, and you said it very well, that even though you're not being paid, whatever you're doing, don't just sit at home. Build your experience by doing other stuff as well. And
actually, that is where soft skills are learned. Many times you'll find that you're not in a formal job, but you're probably doing you're probably in a job where you're using your talent. You're probably a musician, but you want to transition into a formal job that has nothing to do with your music. What you did with your music counts. Whether you were teaching music, whether you were performing, there's certain skills that you build in some of these things that people do not consider as profitable to put in a CV, that count towards some of the soft skills that employers are looking for in the job market.
So they should just stay at home. They should go out. Mtaani, we say wanajituma yani.
Yes. Go out and do something. It builds certain skills. It builds certain character traits. It builds a lot of emotional intelligence in you,
yes,
than just sitting in the house and saying there's no job.
Well, talk about emotional intelligence. I want to talk about critical thinking. And sometimes you find with social media now, for instance, people don't actually correct each other in a nice way. It's all about bullying and name calling. But critical thinking is an aspect very important in workplace, isn't it?
Oh yes. In fact, today that is really a very big thing, and one of the most important soft skills is let me call it creative and critical thinking. And there's a line. It can be a thin line sometimes between critical thinking and bullying. Critical thinking is so important because you need people who can introduce fresh ideas. You need people who can challenge some of the ideas at the workplace and be able to help people think beyond what they know. Okay. But at the same time, it must be a workplace that provides a safe space for you to challenge and a safe space for you to be a critical thinker. So many times you've got good critical thinkers who are working in spaces where they cannot challenge. And that becomes a conflict for them. Bullying and harassment and discrimination and related matters comes to a place where somebody tries to exercise their critical thinking, but they're pushed back. Many times you can be pushed back by an intolerant work environment or an intolerant individual in the workspace. So there are times when you've got individuals who anything you say, critique or creative, to them is an affront to them, or to them it's an emotional thing, they get hurt, and it begins to stifle that space for creative thinkers. So I think it's an important skill to have. It's an important skill to nurture as one. And like you said, on social media, we have bullies. We have those who give creative, we have those who give critical thinking, we have those who give constructive criticism, but we have those who just bully. We have those who put down people, we have those who just hate. somebody because of who they are or what they've achieved, and they just go in and just bring them down. Those are toxic people. And as you well know that today, those who are hiring go to your social media profile. And if somebody goes and sees that your job is just to bring down people, for them, that is a more important thing to consider in not hiring you than anything else.
Yeah. And can you teach? Can you teach someone to be a critical thinker?
No. You can learn. You can learn.
So please carry on.
Can you teach someone to be a critical thinker? I think I remember in high school, one of my ethics classes, we had critical thinking as a subject. So maybe when we are young, when our minds are still absorbing a lot, you can learn what critical thinking is. But you can only be a critical thinker if you know about the subject you're going to criticize, if you know about the issues you're going to criticize, and if you can maturely distill these issues properly and be able to see that there's a gap in what somebody is saying, and you'd want to bring out this gap. But if you're just somebody who rocks up, you have no clue what's going on in this space, but I don't like that person, so you just come and bash them, you're not a critical thinker. And many think they're critical thinkers that way. You're a bully.
So you either have it or not.
Yeah.
So interesting. So for example, in your office right now, if you give one of your junior colleagues or even in turn a paper to analyze that, is that when you find out whether this person is there because of the godmother, the godfather, or actually they're qualified for it?
Well, I mean, if there's a space for learning, okay? For learning. So if somebody is new or young, I mean, use the word young, but let's use the word new. If they're new on the job, there's a space to learn. So if I give you a paper to critique, I must have the mind and attitude as a manager that I'm giving you this paper, one, to exercise what you know, but also to help you learn, because you'll find work environments are different. Even how we look at things are different. And so you want to induct a new employee or a young employee into how you do your work. I'll give you an example. We in my office, we have what we call a youth advisory panel. It used to be active. It's a bit dormant now because of certain transitions in the office. But for about 3 years, it was active. What was this? We actually brought together 12 young people between the ages of 9 to 4 and said that these 12 people, your job will be to be attending some of our meetings, to be going for some of our field work, and giving it the eye of a young person. So that me here, who's in my early 40s, I don't just think that what I'm doing and I have this view that this is how it's going to impact young people who are the majority in the country. Yet there's this, I have a very good friend from that panel from Madare. He's about 19 or 20. He's an artist, artist. He's a rapper. He's also a human rights activist. But when you bring this young gentleman to come and look at a devolution program that you want to roll out and how it is impacting the young people, you get ideas that you would not even have thought of. And that is something that I have valued, and I see other officers doing it. So there's a space to help someone learn and grow, but there's a space to step back and say, what do you see that I'm not seeing? Now, not everyone will take it that way. I think we have a lot of people who, if you're new or you're young, they just tell you, sit in your box, watch and learn. That's not a good attitude to have as one who has more experience or as one who is a line manager.
Interesting, Con. And you find, I don't know about your experience, but you find that nowadays we've got managers that are actually, rather than becoming mentors or giving opportunity to people, they actually become like a bottleneck. And you find that those managers, they're very toxic, they never move, they just stay where they are, but they kind of discourage the juniors. So what I'm trying to say actually is, so people like you, are they the ones that actually are the problem in terms of trying to create space for young people to come up and get those kind of opportunities?
Yes, I agree with you. There are people like me. my age, early 40s, in my position, who feel threatened by young people. And even when we were young, we were threats to older people. It's a cycle that will be there. So you have a lot of people who are older, who younger people come, understand the current trends, are probably more skilled, especially now when a lot of things are moving into digital and tech. It's a huge threat for my age group going up, because we may not have mastered a lot of the digital and tech things, but you've got a younger guy who can do things faster than you, who can do things more efficient than you, and who then comes and understands the content that you do. That's an automatic threat to your job. And a lot of people will try and protect their jobs by frustrating that young person and not giving them the space to grow. But you also have, again, people in my age group who are different. They may be the minority, but who give space to these young people to grow, who think more in terms of legacy, succession, growth, continuity, and you begin to allow a pipeline of young people to come into that space, because you're thinking about the future of that office, the future of that sector. If this was done across different sectors and the spaces, it would help. It would really help us have a better think. And then for us in our age group, we should be thinking of going into bigger spaces and leaving the room for others to come behind us. So yes, they're there. There are those who put them down. They're probably even the majority, unfortunately. And I think these young people who are coming up need to. It's an opportunity for the soft skills. How do you maneuver around a manager who is out to frustrate you? It's a soft skill to learn. At the same time, there's a bit of patience, and I know there's a level where young people reach and say, I can go and find this elsewhere. And it's because they've got good skills. And if you continue frustrating them here, they will find work elsewhere. And then you lose a good person,
Yes.
and you end up suffering.
Interesting. Whoever introduced me to you or told me about you said that, well, obviously your experience, from the grassroots to the highest level you can think of. So what, based on experience, I'm going to ask this, Com. Should young people actually blame those that are ahead of them because they don't create space? Or is it young people being lazy?
It depends on the scenario. I don't think all scenarios are about older people not giving younger people space. There are scenarios where younger people also feel entitled. All of us, many times, reach that point where we feel entitled as young people. I was there, where you feel, hey, I'm a fresh graduate, I can do this, I deserve that, Even recently, when I did the interview to be a commissioner with the Electoral Commission, I looked at the list of those who were shortlisted. I probably know that I had more information, more knowledge, more experience on elections than the bulk of them. But as you know, there are other external factors that come in. I could have taken my entitlement further. I would have gone to court and sued and said, no, I know technically I can get this job, but we know the other factors that come into getting those jobs. In the same way, younger people, it's a combination of the two. So it's like, for me, after university, I was on my own. That's the last time, for example, my parents did anything major. The last thing was, we paid your school fees, you have graduated, we have skilled you, you're out on your own. And my sisters and I looked for our jobs out there. And yes, it was easier then in the late 90s and early 2000s. It's probably easier then than now for us to just quickly navigate the space and get something based on what we have built in our schooling. But the space now is difficult. There are less jobs available. The economy is in a bad place. And you still have a lot of graduates being churned out of universities, of technical colleges, of high school. And how creative can you be? when you come out of this space to see what you can do to make a living. How creative can you be? But at the same time, what are you doing to get to know what opportunities are there? And are you, once you know what opportunities are out there, are you actively applying for them? The guys who've applied for jobs for years until they get one, some just get lucky and get the first job they apply for. Our parents, employers went to the university to look for them and pick them and take them and give them jobs. So there's these cycles that change with generations, and we need to be cognizant of that.
I know. Look, I know we're running out of time, but please allow me to ask two more. Number one, we talked about employability skills and qualification. So when you are hiring yourself, do you just look at qualification and say, right, we've got this guy, or is there something else you're looking at when you see the CV, or when you're in an interview?
Oh yeah, we don't just look for qualifications anymore. I mean, we have so many people with degrees, so many people with diplomas, so many people with masters, doctorates. I mean, if that was the qualification to get to the job, we would have a very hard time giving people jobs. But nowadays, you've got more of the behavioral types of assessments. I was shocked when I was doing this interview to be a commissioner that we were subjected to psychometric tests. I had never heard of them in the public sector, but when I saw that, I was told, yes, it is actually done in a few public offices. And the psychometric test, those who are in the back end of psychometric tests are able to tell the kind of problem-solving skills you have, the kind of teamwork skills you have, the kind of behavioral skills you have. And it'll be very hard to lie. You could lie on a number of questions, but that question comes in a very different way later. And they can easily catch, where somebody lied or whatever it is. Or even in an interview, being asked behavioral questions. So beyond being asked, can you do this? We are often now asking, what are your thoughts about? Or what scenario can you give an example of where you have to exercise teamwork or where you have to exercise dispute resolution? This is where we begin to distill people in interviews. And even in your CV, as we shortlist, we'll look beyond your degree. We shall look at, are you someone who we can see has taken time to go do other things? I was talking about volunteerships, internships, etc. For me, that's an attractive CV. That you've taken time to not just sit in the house and there's no job, but you're actually going out, you have a music skill, you're singing somewhere in a band, you have an acting skill, you're in a theater somewhere acting. That says a lot about you and about your attitude and about your initiative and about the skills I think you have built and you're bringing into the workplace.
So I like that. And sometimes some of those skills that you may have is not necessarily what they're looking for. But, because as you say, it's about teamwork, how do you solve problems. So you might be looking for someone who is experienced in evaluation, for example, but they may not have worked at that high level. But you can see that, they're people's person where, they know how to react to problems, how to solve them. So maybe we should not put ourselves in a box, isn't it? Some people just put themselves in a box and they cannot get out of that.
Yes, don't put yourself in a box. You are the sum total of everything that you do and that you have been exposed to. You're not just your degree in economics or your diploma in education or your A minus in high school or your master's in business administration. You're the sum total of so many things that tell us that, one, you have the ability to do academics and pass, but you are also able to be analytical, that you're able to work in a team, that you have a good attitude. Something else I didn't say that, apart from things like psychometric tests and behavioral questions, references are very important. And many times when you're told, put your referee there, people go out and even ask, not just the guys the questions that will be asked to those you put as your referees. And I know many times we try to put in people who we believe will say all the good things about us. But people
Yes.
are now looking for who has worked with you. So I may just go and just look around town and look for who has worked with you, and that I may know how you work with people and how you work in teams.
So it's very important. That's what are coming up really, to take soft skills as an important aspect when looking for career or looking for purpose in life.
Yes, it's really important. Emotional intelligence is important. Social intelligence is important. Your personality, your attitude, how you communicate to people, whether it's written, whether it's verbal, whether it's how you listen. Communication is also how you listen. And many times we forget, we think it's just speaking. It's how you write to people, how you listen to people, how you speak to people, and your people skills. And all these things, if you heard what I said at the beginning, is learned from your upbringing, from your clubs in school, the clubs you were part of, the sports you're part of, etc., from your volunteerships, even doing first aid club or St. John's ambulance, build certain skills in you that will be so important in a formal workplace, and that is becoming an increasingly important trait that employers are looking for today.
Can you train an attitude?
No, you can't train an attitude. How do you train that? I mean, you can nurture an attitude. If well, how will I put it? Somebody can come in with a bad attitude, but if they're teachable and open to learn, it can be morphed and nurtured into a better attitude. So it's all about, it's still about your attitude that you come with. If you come with a good attitude, make it better. If you come with a bad attitude and you're not open to change or learning or to make it into a better and good attitude, that will be your folly. So yes, you can't be taught, but it can be developed or nurtured to be better.
Well, Con, you're very good. I can see why you are where you are right now. I do like your words. Listen, I mean, I cannot thank you enough for coming here, Con. I know you're a very busy man, and for you to take your time to come and speak to us, I do appreciate that. Now, the last segment of this talk, I should ask my guests to introduce me to the next person. So, for example, I was told about you by one of my guests. So I'm going to ask you as well. You look a bit scared. It's not Kenyatta. I would like you, and it's okay. Listen, it's okay to say yes here on TV, but then you can disappear. That's fine. I would like to have a talk with Ocean, the CS for. I want to say. Oh, I need to do my research well. You know what I'm talking about, no?
Yeah, I know him.
Right. Could you bring me here?
Yes, David Ocean, the Chief Administrative Secretary, Trade, Industrialization, and Enterprise Development.
That's right. Yes, that's right. Yes, yes. He's got very interesting ideas, and it would be nice to hear from him as well.
So are you asking me to get him to come to your show?
Yes. Well, introduce me to him, then we can have a talk. And if he comes, yes, doesn't. That's okay.
Fine. I'll do it. Consider it done by the end of the week. I'll talk to David. He's a good old friend of mine. A very good man for this show, actually. He's got some very good points, work ethic, and a very good attitude. I think there are many lessons he can bring here. So yes, I'll introduce you to him.
Con, thank you very much. I do appreciate that. Listen, for those that just joined us, this is Mtandaoversity School of Soft Skills, and I was talking to Con Omore Osendo, based in Nairobi, Kenya. Listen, I'm very happy that we were able to talk now. We're part of a network now, so you cannot get rid of me. I've got all your details now.
No problem, Kevin. Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it. I also have your details, so I'm going to follow you up, especially on the Sports for Good Foundation that you are part of.
Oh, please, yes, let me know. And thank you so much for your time. I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you very much.